What's up, guys? Our wrestling podcast back at you with another episode. We are going to Steinerize this one. This is Dave Vicious along with Jess, the total package, Craig, the British Bulldog, bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. Someone's got to feed me today's topic.
Dave, we're talking today about the Steiner Brothers.
Steinerize!
We have hinted around how incredible they are. Jess has said on about 10 plus episodes, he's not going to fight you if you call Steiner Brothers the greatest tag team of all time. I think today we're just going to briefly touch on why they are, and I'm excited for this one. Rick,
I'm probably going to convince myself that they are. I'm not saying I fight that. I'm just saying, like, I'm probably going to, after the end of this podcast, I'll be all emotional and just be like, oh, they're fucking the best. No one's been better. Name me anybody.
There you go. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcast, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. On social media, give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019, or on Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. Craig, are you ready for a Steiner line?
Yeah, but like, don't like let me fall back. Like, don't hit me like hard like he would do. Like, I don't want to go like in the locker room and see that I was supposed to wrestle the Steiners, then walk out. Just if you're cool, are you gonna be cool? Will you give me a cool Steiner line?
No.
Like a pro, like the kind of Steiner line he would give like an Anderson or something like that.
Like a pro if I was Scott Steiner.
A respectful Steiner line.
Don't Steiner line me like you would a prelim. That's not. There's two different things.
Yeah.
I don't want a
Sandy
really
Beach Steiner line. I don't want a Mike
Yokozuna butt drop on a prelim versus Yokozuna butt drop on Hulk Hogan. Two completely different butt drops. Very different.
Yeah, man. So good. So good. Yeah, this is a good one, guys. This is something I can't wait to dig into. The Steiner Brothers were so impressive that I think a lot of people, like, they see them in and out depending on what particular organization they were watching. But the Steiners were cleaning house wherever they went, right?
They were professional wrestlers. Like, that's all I can say, like, for them. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, that's it. I don't even want to do this topic. I can't say anything else. They're great. Like, they both, you'll get into it. They both have extensive amateur backgrounds. They're both super tough guys. Scott had a really strong personality in the back. They were very boisterous about their gimmick, and they were, promoters were attempting to split them up several times throughout their run, because that's the way of wrestling, right? When brothers are together or best friends are together, it's like, I can't wait till we split you up. It's going to be big money. But they kind of resisted for a long time. So it's going to be, they didn't want to get split up. They love tag team wrestling. That's what they wanted to do.
I think that's a great point. I think Scott, like, you remember most about the Steiners, Big Papa Pump, the math meme, the last 5 years of when he was big, but like, the two of them together, Rick got Scott in the game, and then Scott, when they joined, and we'll talk about this later, when they first joined WWF, when Scott was ready and could very much go solo, wanted to bring his brother along and not bury his brother. Like, it's a big story of brotherhood, of love, and these two guys that were awesome. It's actually a story about amateur wrestlers, like two world champions at Michigan, legit guys, and you could see that in their training and in their discipline, and they're like one of the greatest tag teams of all time, like, without a doubt. Like, I'm sad that it ended so quick. I'm sad they didn't go for 40 years.
Yeah.
So is it Resch Steiner or is it Rec Steiner?
Well, it's Rex Steiner, and
That sounds
in the
even
notes.
better.
It
doesn't
will explain it because it's really simple and kind of hilarious how Rick Steiner got his name.
That's so funny. Okay, it already kind of explains itself. So, Robert Rex Steiner was born on March 9th, 1961. He's 60 years old. He was
Are you
outstanding.
talking about Bob Steiner? Are you
Yeah,
talking
Bob
about
Steiner. Yeah,
Steiner
Bob
brother
Steiner.
Bob Steiner?
Yeah, Bob. He was an outstanding amateur wrestler for the University of Michigan and achieved world-class status. He was introduced into pro wrestling in 1983 by George Steele. He developed the ring name of Rick Steiner because his last name sounded like Rick Steiner. Between 1983 and 1987, he would begin wrestling for the AWA under Bill Watts' UWF in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And after the sale of UWF to Crockett Promotions, Rick would enjoy a successful singles career, most notably with the Varsity Club, where he would win the NWA TV Championship. Pretty cool stuff.
Sorry to interrupt you. I never even thought that George Steele trained wrestlers or introduced wrestlers, but now I'm thinking to Rick's beginnings as a wrestler, and Rick was a very like the dog-faced gremlin, just a guy that barked and was kind of
George
like
Steele. George Steele would end up becoming like this character because when George Steele was like in his prime, George Steele was a mean ass heel, like, and he would do a lot of terrible. Even when he first, but when he went to WWF, they toned him down. Because Junior wanted him to be a little bit more cartoony and friendly to kids and stuff because he's hairy. So make him like a cuddly monster, like teddy bear kind of guy. So that's when he got the green tongue and stuff. But yeah, I never made the connection until I started researching. I was like, fucking George Steele broke Rick Steiner in. That's crazy. And then, the dog-faced gremlin is a little bit kind of like animal-ish kind of. Yeah. You know, and he did that. We'll get into it.
He barked.
Yeah.
He talked with his little hand.
Yeah, Alex, his hand puppet Alex.
Is that what his name was? I'm sorry, Alex.
It was Alex, So he started doing that stuff too. And like, because this isn't about Rick, so I didn't go into that. But I mean, like, that's interesting because you're right. Like, I didn't connect the dots. And I was like, George Steele, fuck, that's weird. And then right now when you said that, I was like, yes, of course he barked and ran around. Like, it's really weird.
Makes sense now.
Guess what, guys? I'm talking like this the entire time now. The rest of the podcast.
In 1988, no, just kidding. In 1988, his brother Scott Steiner would accompany him to the ring until the two eventually formed a tag team. Scott Rick Steiner was born on July 29th of 1962. He is 59 years old. He, like his brother, was a standout amateur wrestler for the University of Michigan and also won numerous awards. In 1986, Scott would enter pro wrestling and was trained by Jerry Graham Jr. in Ohio. He would also wrestle for the Memphis-based CWA promotion until 1988. He would change his name to Scott Steiner and join his brother in WCW in late 1988.
So we saw this, I don't know, it was one of you guys shared it on our Instagram little chat that we have going on with the four of us on this podcast.
Yeah.
It was Scott Steiner doing a 450 splash in like 87 or something like that, 86, 87. And it was like, he was so physically gifted, Scott was. Like, he was the flashy one of the two. We'll go on more. Both were super tough, and Rick was an amazing professional wrestler. Like, he was super solid, especially with his just his understanding and foundation of wrestling. But Scott was like this, kind of like this enigma. Like, he was like this amazing gymnastic. We talked about Dynamite Kid a couple episodes ago. He had those flashes where you're like, dude, he just did a 450 splash in 1986. And hopefully I can pull up the clip here and put it up on YouTube.
You could argue Scott might make one of our next trendsetter episodes for a lot of reasons.
He really was.
That, for Steiner math, right?
Steiner math, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was
a guy that big shouldn't be that athletic. Like, he was, and at some point he got too big for anybody's taste and to do the things that he did. But when he was in his early period, in his first 10 years, was fantastic. He was pure athlete, pure muscle,
doing stuff that cruiserweights should be doing, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
He was gifted.
Yep. In January of '89, the brothers would begin teaming and call themselves the Steiner Brothers. Originally, they had Missy Hyatt as their manager, but then
Oh.
Robin Green would accompany them to the ring. Yeah, bye, Missy. Was it
Wait,
Missy
they-
Hush?
They both railed Missy High, right? Can we say that?
Oh my God, probably.
Oh,
They Steinerized Missy Hyatt.
I was
That's
not there. I was not there.
I had to. Steinerized.
Robin would always seem to take an interest in Rick. She would soon betray the duo and cost him a shot at the WCW World Tag Team Championship at the Clash of Champions 8 by tripping Rick Steiner on purpose, causing the loss. She would then change her name to Woman and manage the mass team.
So
of
Robin
Doom.
Green was Woman.
Was woman, yeah.
Okay.
So she friended Rick Steiner. She acted all interested. She kind of dressed nerdy. And then that's right around the time that Scott started teaming with him.
And Rick was always seemed to be like the simple one. He took on
and she liked him,
easily
and
tricked.
She turned on him apparently because she wanted to show that she could outsmart the simple person. I don't know why. Simple Jack.
And then go back to Kevin Sullivan, which is dumb. And go on to defeat the Steiner Brothers at Halloween Havoc of 1989. On November 1st of 89, the Steiners would capture their first NWA WCW World Tag Team Championships by defeating the Fabulous Freebirds on their syndicated show, World Championship Wrestling. That's great.
Garvin Dale Hayes, Steiner's on top. 1, 2, yeah! New tag team champions have been crowned. The Steiners have won it. They're the new tag team champions of the world.
Ladies and gentlemen.
That's crazy. Not even a pay-per-view, huh?
No. And in my mind, I mean, I've followed the Steiners for a long time. In my mind, I was like, they won the U.S. titles first, and then they won the tag titles. But then I had to remind myself when I went back into the research, I was like, that's right, they did. Like, they got a quick WCW NWA tag team championship, like, right at the tail end of 89. And I was like, I fucking forgot about that, like, to be honest.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I always.
Well, and to be noted, if you go back and watch anything from them, they'd only been teaming. I mean, I know they've been brothers their whole life, obviously, but they've been teaming in professional wrestling for only 1 year at this point. I fucking find a flaw in their goddamn game in 1989. Like, they were already like, you can go back and watch 80 tapes from 89 and 90 of the Steiners, and they're just fucking dominant. They're dominant.
Yeah.
Like, they were amazing to watch even back then. They would get even better as we go on. I mean, just the stellar as they go on. But
the Freebirds being on the decline of their careers, and then the Steiners, like this 5 years is like the they were fantastic. Like they never had a bad
fun
match.
fact,
Like
the Freebirds never wrestled again after this.
Stop it.
That's not true.
God damn it, stop it.
Well, one of them did go on to run Monday Night Raw and say something like "tackle football on concrete," and I don't need to understand. You don't need to remember your name. Like,
Wait a minute.
Yeah. Dude.
Dude. Oh,
And that was
goodness.
Terry Gordy. That was
Yep.
Terry Gordy.
That was Buddy Roberts.
That was Buddy Roberts. That wasn't even a Freebird.
At Starcade 89. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't help it. The Steiners would fall short of winning the tag team round robin tournament, but they would score a pinfall victory against the Road Warriors. That's a pretty big deal.
And for Road Warriors to look at the lights and take that fall, yeah.
I guess so. I guess if you want to do that, that's fine.
All right.
They never did anybody, but even Hawk and Animal. I'm just kind of free balling on this here, but like the Steiners are pretty mean guys. Like not mean as in mean people. I don't know them personally, but like they would whip your ass because
They're
that's
mean
how
in the
good they
ring.
were amateur wise, and that's what they can handle. I mean, look at the size of Scott even before he became
Right.
Big Papa Pump. And the Road Warriors were gigantic, but even they knew they were notorious for being like not doing it, not losing. Stop. Rick and Scott, that's fine. If you want to lose, that's totally fine. You guys want to go over on us tonight? That's fine. It's fine. Like, what are you gonna say no to Rick and Scott Steiner? Like,
I love how the whole changes. Oh, Scott and Rick?
Hey Scott, hey Rick, how are you? You guys are great. Oh my god. Like, yeah.
Pleasure to meet you guys. I'm Hawk. This is
Animal.
We
We
want to get your
do.
shit in, and we want to
Yeah.
get our shit in,
Yeah.
and we'll have fun out there. Let's just have fun out there.
Yeah,
But again, I'm just
whatever they say,
spitballing
it's
that.
all good.
I'm just, it is because
So good.
Road Warriors were notorious for being like, look, we'll lose, but by count out or by this or by that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like they didn't like looking at the lights, Road Warriors, because they're like,
And,
who's gonna believe that? I'm like, well, when you see two people that throw other people around like they weigh nothing, those are
Yeah.
the two guys that
They
can
can
go ahead
work.
and go over you. Like,
But what I'm scared to ask is who actually won that round robin tournament.
The Road Warriors did. That's
Oh,
yeah.
so okay.
Oh,
All right.
There you go.
That's fair.
So what
Okay,
was that
good.
start? Was that Future Shock? Is that
Yes,
what that's called?
that was Future Shock 89. Yes, sir.
What a
There you
shitty
go.
name.
Nice.
You don't call a round robin tag tournament Future Shock.
Come on.
What
You
a
can do it,
crazy
but you can do it at
concept.
Capital
Optimistic,
Combat,
like,
right?
that was Future Shock, wasn't it? Fucking shitty, stupid name. Like, why would they even do that?
Just call it
almost
tag team
almost
round
as
robin.
good as Capital Combat in 1990.
I also use the word very ambitious. Starcade 89 was very ambitious. That's my way. That Dave always calls me out for saying they work hard as like covering it up, and it was really shitty.
Yeah.
I say that was very ambitious for something that kind of didn't really work out. An
We
idea
always
that
say
didn't
things like that would be awesome if like we had a round robin tournament, like a top 4 tag teams,
That'd be-
or you
yeah.
had like Battle Bowl where like you put the strangers together, the best wrestlers in the world for tag team, picked them out of a bowl, but like
That's
it
almost
never-
as
it
good
never-
as a scaffold match, Craig.
it,
Almost
yeah,
as
it
good.
never
And that's why we don't
execution
want-
doesn't
that-
quite work.
That's why we don't run wrestling companies, because
Right.
when people that are fans like us get in there, I'm like, we'll just have a 3-ring battle royal. Like it just like shits the bed.
Well, what do you call
It's
it?
like,
World
no,
War
you should
II?
have done
No,
that.
it's 3 rings. World War III. And the giant will win it.
Like I said a minute ago, here comes another great name at Capital Combat 1990.
RoboCop.
Yeah.
RoboCop on May 19th. They would lose the NWA WCW World Tag Team titles to Doom, now unmasked and managed by Theodore R. Long or Teddy Long.
That was my favorite incarnation of Doom.
Holla.
Put something in that glove. There's something in that glove. The referee didn't see it. The bell has sounded. Doom has won it. Doom has won the world title. I can't believe this. I can't believe it. There's something in that right glove.
Holla, holla, holla if you hear me.
That wasn't the time, Dave.
I know it wasn't, but still, it's all good. I'm trying to bring people in. They go, oh, I don't know that guy, but I know that guy. All right, settle down. Settle down. Seriously. Ridiculous. On August 24th, my pappy's birthday, 1990, the Steiner Brothers defeated the Midnight Express for the WCW United States Tag Team Championship.
So the
at a house
Steiners
show.
defeated the Midnight Express on your dad's birthday. What
Yeah.
a gift. What a gift.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Pops.
They're
Which,
super giving.
yeah, and Dave's dad at midnight always made us clean his golf shoes and clean up after ourselves and make sure
That was
we
the
did
that was the
regularly.
price of admission. Yeah.
Cheers to your pops and
And
This one's
cheers
for you,
to
Pops.
the Steiners winning the U.S. title on his birthday. I think that's tremendous.
He's blocking the power driver. A Steiner line by Scott. Dollface has he rolled up. And the Steiners win it. What a hard-fought match. The winners of the match. And still, United States Tag Team Champions, Hurricane Scott Steiner. The Steiner Brothers.
Tremendous.
that's right.
I will
Yeah,
try
just-
anything
it
to
was
wrestling
right
I can.
There you go. At Halloween Havoc 1990, the Steiners would successfully defend their U.S. tag titles against the Nasty Boys in a hard-hitting, fantastic match. The crowd was
Your dad would have
insane.
hated the Nasty Boys, by the way.
Oh yeah, I hate him too. I can't stand him. But the crowd was insane for the Steiners. This was an indication of how popular the Steiner brothers were becoming. Scott Steiner was also using the Frankensteiner as their finishing move. You got to put a clip in here if you can. It was the
This was
hottest
the
move
first
in
time he did
American
it.
wrestling at the time. Just
It really
awesome.
was. I mean, a lot of in Japanese wrestling, they were doing stuff like this like already, but American wrestling audiences, again, with the WWF kind of being kingfish here, Vince retaught you that wrestling is just over the top characters and
Yeah.
bubblegum and just simplistic storylines. Whereas like Japan, they always kind of had like that, athletic, more real, stiff. They would do a lot of that. So the Steiners were bringing like a lot of that to America. And like, man, when I first saw the Frankensteiner, that shit was crazy. Like
Yeah.
nobody could see that. Now it's like Hurricane Rana's happen all over. And we learned that it was called a Hurricane Rana after like Rey Mysterio broke in,
We saw it the first time by Scott Steiner, which is kind of crazy. when
Yeah,
you think
Scott
about
Steiner
it.
did. It was a standing Hurricane Rana. He'd throw them against the ropes and then jump up and catch them and Frankensteiner them or Hurricane Rana them over. And like, man, some of the bumps that you could tell a lot of the American wrestlers were learning how to take that bump. They've never
didn't know how
taken
to
that
take the
bump
bump.
before. So yeah, like some of it was really rough and rugged, and you're like, oh, like when they land on their head, and some was smooth as silk, depending on who he did it to, but just seeing Steiner from a standstill position, jumping up and catching them and flipping them over with his legs was something to behold. And then you had Rick, who was like, his Steiner line would just take people's heads straight off. Like, and then they would do the belly to belly suplexes, the belly to belly off the top rope, the bulldog off the top rope was another big one here. This match with the Nasty Boys, I will show anybody, even non-wrestling fans, because the Nasty Boys knew their role here, and they're like, you were just going to take all your shit. And Senators were like, sounds good. And like, they just, I mean, this, go back and watch Halloween Havoc 1990. This match to this day is still absolute fire. This match is
And for
awesome.
the Nasty Boys to be a team that says, we're going to take all your shit.
He got him with a Frankensteiner. 1, 2, 3. The Steiners win it. Ladies and gentlemen, the winners and still United States Tag Team Champions, the Steiner Brothers.
Shit.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Like,
And we're not
like,
going to
so
fight you. Like, we're not going to
we're
fight you
just-
at all. Like, you're fine. And like,
And
man,
it's
in
not
the
because
crowd,
they're dicks. It's just they're like Road Warriors and Nasty Boys, and like the Steiners are just that good. It's like you
and they
have to
understood.
respect them.
Yeah. They understood their roles at that point. And then on top of it, I was noticing a lot too, even when I was growing up during this period, the Steiners were getting the same pop that Sting was and people like that, like on an upper level. And they were a tag team. They were getting really big ovations. Like, again, this match at Halloween Havoc 90 is a perfect example. The crowd was just, when you get Jim Ross up on this level, like when he has to talk on the high octave because the crowd's so loud, it's a good match. And Jim Ross calling this match was like awesome, and like just the crowd exploding at everything. And Steiners would hit something and Ross is like, oh, like that. It's just like, it was awesome.
Steiners have just been the skyscrapers and Doom both at the same time.
It was really cool, man. Like, I can't, and their U.S. title run, again, we had this, our episode in our archives, the Forgotten Secondary Titles. We talk about the U.S. tag titles. This dude, Midnight Express, Steiner Brothers feuding over that championship, defending against the Nasty Boys. These are top shelf tag teams that are fighting for the U.S. tag titles. Like, geez, man. Like, and the Steiners absolutely brought credibility to the United States Tag Team Championship. Like, they treated it like it was a World Tag Team Champions, and that's what's missing today. I'm not going to go off on that.
They were perfect about. They were the perfect representation of WCW, NWO at that time. The realism, like they weren't cartoony. We saw them later when they went to WWF, but it was so fun to see them in WCW at this time, in the stiffness, in the wrestling matches, and not just like the cartoony different level WWF tag team like division. Like, it was nice to see these guys rock.
Yeah, I'm glad they started out here and in
Yes.
their youth when they were young and before the injuries started compiling. Like, just God darn it, like watching these guys here was amazing.
Yep. Scott would actually be tested as a singles competitor and gained a shot at Ric Flair in the NWA WCW World Heavyweight Championship at the Clash of Champions 14. The match ended in a draw, but was just average. Years later, Scott would claim Flair underperformed on purpose out of jealousy and not wanting to push young stars like him.
And Flair and Steiner never really got along. And then, of course, in WCW, especially in the dying days when Scott Steiner was put on top, he was known for running Ric Flair down in the ring and behind the scenes, and like he never really got along. I think he carried this with it. We're going to talk about their and we talked a little bit about it at the beginning, and we're going to talk about it more, that they liked teaming together. Rick and Scott did, but here I think Scott wanted to shine a little bit as a singles, maybe to prove to himself that he was as good as Rick, because Rick was already an established singles wrestler at this point. We already talked about he had won the NWA television championship. And so I think Scott wanted to prove that too. And even the wrestling community, when they knew that Flair was taking on Scott Steiner at the Clash of Champions, were like, oh, this is a new star. This is going to be good. But he wasn't the Ric Flair, by the way, of 89, 88, 87, 86. He was the Ric Flair of 1991, who was losing his confidence, who was being yelled at by Jim Herd to cut his hair short and call himself Spartacus.
Yeah, he was told that his gimmick was no good, which is ridiculous.
And so unfortunately, Scott Steiner got a shell of his former self, Ric Flair, here, but he held it personally against Flair, feeling that. And if you do go back and watch the match, it never really got into like second or third gear. And I think Scott held that inside, if I remember shooting interviews correctly and stuff.
So, and some people just don't mesh, man.
You know who else says Flair sabotaged it was Lance Storm. who also respects Flair, but Lance Storm is like, I look back now, a couple years ago, he saw the match and
He
said,
watched it back.
He said
This specific match.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which
No,
is
and
like
Scott Steiner held that in.
Think that about Flair, but like I didn't think about the herd piece when his confidence was so low, and
I think he was
never
just
mind
beaten
what
down,
it takes to keep your spot and keep Flair, but like Flair is a man who kept that spot and still managed to make everybody. I guess if there was a moment, and if the rumors were true that like Scott was going to be that next guy, and as a test ground for it, Flair could have sabotaged it, and Scott like.
A lot of that went on. That's why I love pro wrestling. I love it. Like when people ask me, I'm like, I love it. Why do you stay interested in pro wrestling when you became an adult? Why did you stay? I was like, because then you switch to the behind the scenes. So it's kind of like, I'm not saying I'm like a Meltzer lover or anything like that, or I like the dirt sheets. I don't care for that. I like the way the business works, the thought process, and even the politics. I don't like the politics, but I'm super interested that this sport on the surface that's completely predetermined and acting basically, and that's all it is. Of course I respect the athleticism and all that stuff, but that's not my point. My point is like it, but behind the scenes, this is real money we're talking about. It's real fame. A lot of professional wrestlers get known like on the streets, become household names, this is a real fight for money and your position in your career, especially back in 1991. This was, like a little no sell, where you should be selling could tell a different story about a particular wrestler.
On top, holding titles matter with the money.
I love the little back and forth. No, I'm not a professional wrestler. No, I'm not saying who's right or wrong, Scott or Rick here. But at the same time, it's been a point of contention for Scott for years that Flair sandbagged him.
It's not actual sports where like winning and losing, like it's purely about whether you win or not. It's not acting whether it's purely about whether you fuck someone on the back and whether you get them hired or fired to the gig. It's different. It's a hybrid of like you're out there in front of people. Everyone's got to make everybody, but you can also do slight certain things to keep your position, to make people, to hold people back, to politic. Like that's why wrestling it's politics with like strong dudes. Like it's an amazing, it's a microcosm of life. Or
like any other company
together, but like who can rise in a thing where you all got to work together. Yeah,
absolutely. On February 18th of 1991, the Steiner Brothers defeated the Fabulous Freebirds to once again win the WCW Tag Team Championships. This would make Steiner's the second team to hold both the U.S. and World Tag Team Championships at the same time. They would vacate those U.S. titles on February 20th of 1991. Then they would tour New Japan Pro Wrestling and defeat Hiroshi Hase and Kensuke Sasaki for the IWGP Tag Team Championships on March 21st of 1991 in the WCW New Japan Pro Wrestling Super Show. WCW began to refer to them as the Triple Crown Champions.
This was, even as a fan back here, I was just like, 91 was such a period of flux for WCW, and like they didn't know which way it was up or down, but like the Steiners they were getting better and better. Even in 91, they were one of the only bright spots in WCW that, they were the consistent. Whenever you watched Steiner Brothers, you knew no matter what, you were going to get entertained by them, and like they were going to give you a great match. And now I talk about all the time, the touring to New Japan Pro Wrestling, their style was perfect for New Japan. They would get stiff in there. I mean, we would see them brutalize Japanese opponents. Like how many matches do we watch where Steiner would bloody their Japanese opponents' noses because like, oh yeah, you guys want to wrestle stiff? We love that shit. And like, they would just get in there. Yeah. And it was like, oh, whoa. Even some Japanese wrestlers were like, that's a little too stiff for us. Like now they call it strong style. But back here, it was just Steiners being stiff and rough and like, everybody knew what the beginning, middle, and end of the match looked like, but in between, if I decide to forearm your face, I'm going to do that. Like, and that was just the way the Steiners wrestled. And man, they would go to Japan and have great matches over there. The fact that they won the IWGP Tag Team Championship here again, now you have this team that is seasoning themselves not only in America but in Japan. Those titles mean something. New Japan Pro Wrestling, everybody knows the lineage of that, and the history of that, and the prestige of winning those titles. You got a trophy every goddamn time you won a Japanese title, apparently. I've noticed every picture is like them with the belt, and they're like, and I got this
And
trophy.
people throw streamers at you. You get a lot of
streamers at you.
thrown at you.
So it was so cool to see that as an American wrestling fan. I would see the magazines and the pictures of them, and on WCW television, they would talk about how they won, and they were calling them like the Triple Crown champions. And it's like, oh my God, like these guys were already the greatest tag team in the world at the time, and they were just making history over and over again. Like they were. Like we say it all the time, Steiners were just on fire at this point, man. They were just doing everything. They were doing everything. Like they were competitive men, and they were just like, yeah, we're done here. We're gonna go to New Japan, like, and we're gonna dominate there. And they let that promotion was like, no, these guys are the real deal. It's for American representation that these guys, Steiners, are the ones that we want to wear the belts and take over to WCW and show off to the American audience and bring back here. And it's just another feather in the cap of the Steiner brothers. Just good, solid shit, man.
And unfortunately, in the summer of 91, Scott Steiner would suffer a bicep injury that would require surgery. As a result, the Steiners would vacate the WCW World Tag Team Championships. Scott would occasionally be in Rick's corner as Rick would wrestle in singles matches for the remainder of the year. One of those was at Clash of Champions 17 on November 19th of 91. For Lex Luger's WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Rick would lose by pinfall.
And that was a kind of a reminder about how good of a singles I think a lot of people have forgotten with over the 2 years the success of the Steiners. You see Rick in here again, and like he was on the top level wrestling Luger for the world title, and I'm like, yeah, Rick can do that. He's that good. Like, it's pretty cool to see.
The only question I have is, did Scott injure that in the ring or in the gym? My bet's in the gym.
Who knows? I don't know 100%. You're probably right.
He was starting to lift his physique was pushing that way. I think he pushed.
People always talk about his physique as Big Papa Pump, but like honestly, like look at the pictures behind us. Scott Steiner was always a big man, like just gigantic. Like he was always into powerlifting, always into just getting a big physique. Rick was always in really good shape, but like Scott, you could tell was going for the sculpting and the bodybuilding and stuff like that. Like he was just a big person. And I think Big Papa Pump, dare I say, he was a little smaller in the sense like he was just way more chiseled and defined as Big Papa Pump. And he had like those odd looking biceps. But back here behind you, Dave, especially, he was just a big, look at the size of him. Like he just, Scott was just really big.
Well, both of your images, they're perfect. They don't need like the way he looked with the chainmail headdress and the biceps and tries, just insane, and the body fat, like, and completely roided out. Like they looked fantastic in the photos behind you guys. And at this point in their careers.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's why, no, maybe not why.
It's like Hollywood and plastic surgery, right? You see like an actor or actress or a model that looks just beautiful and wonderful. And then like later they feel like they have to get plastic surgery after plastic surgery. And they think in their mind, like, this makes me look better at 50, right? You're like, no, it doesn't.
Baby, you can't Frankensteiner. No, baby, you can't. You're too big.
That's how I feel about some wrestlers like Scott looked great here, but in his mind was like, I could look better. I could be better. And it's like, oh, okay, all right.
And on May 3rd of 92, because of that look, the Steiner brothers would defeat Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton to regain the WCW. Darn Anderson. To regain the WCW World Tag Team Championships. And on July 5th of 92, the Steiner brothers would lose those titles to Terry Gordy and Dr. Death Steve Williams.
Dr. Death ramming Rick Steiner into the turnbuckle, carrying the big man, but Steiner gets off and caught him with a Steiner line, and they're both down.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was a desperation move by Rick Steiner, because had Dr. Death turned and power slammed him, it would have been him. But there again, the tag and the fresh Bam Bam Gordy in.
Gordy with the Irish whip.
We talk about matches. I call them Go Out of Your Ways. And the Steiners and Dr. Death and Terry Gordy matches are Go Out of Your Ways. Like they're
go find those.
Those guys just, again, that's like twins looking back at each other, not because their physical appearance, but like they love the stiffness, especially Dr. Death and Terry Gordy, and you want to get in there with them too, they're fine with it. Like, and these guys had some physical matches in WCW in 1992. Like probably the only bright spots of the Bill Watts era in WCW was the Steiners and Terry Gordy and Dr. Death. Good stuff.
Do you have these names reversed? Because it says Scott would again return to singles action when Rick suffered a torn. It's
No.
not again, right?
That is Rick would trade now and hurt himself, and Scott would be.
So Rick, okay, so Rick suffered
Wait,
the torn.
can
Now
we just
Scott's
back up
going to
and
singles.
why was Jess licking the glass with his tongue over there?
I was like,
Oh.
Yeah, you were. Sorry.
So in October of '92, now they changed roles. Scott would would go to singles action because Rick actually suffered a torn pec muscle.
yeah,
And then Scott would tease a heel turn and was given a shot at the WCW TV title on October 17th, 1992. Scott Steiner would defeat Ricky Steamboat to win that title. Poor Rick.
He helped him back in, and Scotty he's going to hook up Steamboat right now. 1, 2, 3, and he's the new champ. He's the new champ. Incredible.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner and new WCW World Television Champion, Scott Steiner.
That probably was a rough match. In November of '92, the Steiners would have a contract dispute with Bill Watts and sign with the WWF. This caused Scott to
That's weird that
vacate
Bill Watts would
television.
fuck up the best thing that he had in the tag team.
well, I guess, and I've been listening to a lot of other podcasts too. I guess Scott really didn't like Bill because Bill was like an alpha male, so he would come in, and apparently Scott did not like to be talked to, like he was less than an alpha male himself. So I guess Scott always took exception, like to Bill Watts, and would try to like call him out and be like, "You're not that tough," and like, because Bill Watts was. Listen, I know people are going, Bill Watts is such a legend, and he is, and
No,
he offered
not.
a lot, but at the same time, he was an old, stubborn, tough fuddy-duddy. Now, I'm sure he was a tough guy and all that stuff, but when you're not tougher than Scott Steiner, let's just be honest, at that point, because Scott Steiner was legit fighting athlete. Bill Watts was not. He was just a beer drinking,
These
probably
are,
tough
these are
guy.
These are people that wrestle on a national level, like actual.
Bill Watts,
Tasha
no
wrestling.
doubt that Bill Watts could roll in a car 50 times and get out and dust himself off. That's how tough Bill Watts was, and I'm not disputing
Great.
that. I'm just saying, like, when you're a promoter, you need to check your ego and stop puffing your chest out like you're going to fight everybody.
I'm not sure if
And
I
You're
want
not
Scott
heavyweight
Steiner
champion Bill
at
Watts.
this moment
Yeah.
shooting on me.
You have
Sorry.
to work with people that.
Yeah, you have to make it work. And like, I'm not saying Scott Steiner, he was known later, like in his career when he became a singles wrestler to be a loudmouth on the back and stuff. But at the same time, the problem with Bill Watts is that he still in his mind thought he was on top. Like even when he was just a promoter and like, or just head booker.
No one knows who you
Yeah.
are, bro, at that moment.
And Scott's not going to take that shit. He's just like, we are the Steiner brothers. Do you hear of the 100 people we actually draw? Do you hear them? They fucking want the Steiners. Like we're just as big as Sting or Luger or whoever else you could put out there. Like, so you will treat us appropriately. And like I guess Scott did not like the way Bill treated them. So he was basically go fuck yourself.
I like Scott's instincts there because any motherfucker that pulls the mats off and makes you not jump off the top rope and makes you not leave the matches
until the whole card's over.
Until
Just
the whole
holding
card's
back.
over,
Yeah.
you're just an asshole. It's not college football. You're not putting together a amateur wrestling team.
Right.
You're a businessman,
Yeah.
and you have no business like running a professional wrestling company with egos.
Yeah. It's not
Like
just
you
about
don't
what
get
you
to.
want to see, by the way. It's what gets ratings, what people watching. And like Bill, hate to break it to you, turning all the lights out in the arena, taking all the mats away, and telling fucking cruiserweights who make their name off jumping off the top rope on a prone
Not
opponent,
to
taking
do
that
that.
away, you're an idiot.
You're a
Like,
moron. You're a
an
fucking
idiot.
moron.
Yeah. And then
Whoa.
firing the Steiner
Go
brothers.
back to your VFW with 10 people and cigars. Go ahead. Good job, Bill.
Yeah.
Go back to the Elks Lodge. Oh,
By the way, that dude, even when he's dead in his coffin, could crush me right now.
Yeah, he could. Bill Watts would still knock me out in one shot, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But that's whatever.
Yeah. I'd be like, oh, yeah, who's in their coffin? Who's dead? Blah, 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 blah.
well, we can also
I dead.
we can also thank Bill Watts because this leads us to the debut of the Steiners in the World Wrestling Federation. Those same Steiner Brothers would debut on WWF television in the first episode of Raw on January 11th, 1993. I always forget that.
That's a big ass piece
As
of
they-
history. The Steiner
yeah,
brothers were on
they-
the first episode of
the
Raw.
first episode of Raw.
Crazy.
I always forget.
Yeah.
And they defeated some enhancement talent.
Don't try this at home, kids. Here are your winners, the Steiner Brothers.
That they also would defeat the Beverly Brothers in their pay-per-view debut at the Royal Rumble of 1993.
I was so excited as a fan when they came over. Like,
Yeah.
I will learn later as you read on that I should not have been excited because like Vince doesn't do that stuff here. But whatever.
No,
we got to see the Steiner brothers.
He always wants to break him down and bring him back.
You are
up.
not stiff.
At WrestleMania 9.
The only thing stiff here is my cock.
Whoa.
And my wallet, huh?
Those same Steiners defeated the Head Shrinkers in a shaky but stiff match. After Mania, they began a feud with Money Inc. for
Underrated.
the
I'll stop you right there,
Tag
Dave.
Team Championship.
Underrated match in one of the worst WrestleManias, WrestleMania 9.
Yeah, you
Underrated
forget
match
about
for the
this.
Head Shrinkers.
Yeah.
I do agree. I do
Were
agree
a
with
beast,
you.
Yeah.
And the botches were brutal still. Like, remember when they dumped Scott over the top rope? They were supposed to backdrop him over the top rope, but Scott decided, I'm going to go face first, like over the rope. Like, it was insane. Like, yeah, they were just super. They were wanting to be physical with each other. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure in house shows, the Head Shrinkers and Steiners tore the house down because they were the Wild Samoans, or not the Wild Samoans. My God, who were they in WCW? Why am I think it was just the Wild Samoans.
Samoan SWAT team?
Samoan SWAT team. Thank you so much. I can't believe
Good job, buddy.
I fumbled that football.
Okay.
Nice save.
I'm the knowledge guy in the podcast.
They wrestled the Samoan SWAT team in WCW, and they had great matches too. And this was just another incarnation of the Samoan SWAT team, basically. Switching out a player. But yeah, like the Head Shrinkers, like they on the house shows, I'm sure they killed it. But here for WrestleMania, like Craig said, it was an odd WrestleMania. It was outdoors. It was a different looking Mania. For a card that pretty much sucked up and down. These guys were just, again, they threw the stiff stuff into it, which I don't think Vince liked, if I may say so. Like, I think that as wrestling fans, we liked it, but I went back and watched the match right before we got on the air here, like at a couple of minutes. And so I just kind of wanted to watch that because I wanted to watch Scott's bump over the top rope. And so I was like, man, like, yeah, it was just, it was stiff and good, but it was shaky. It was like you could tell they were just calling the shit probably on the fly. Like,
yeah,
just
like probably never touch each other. Like,
They probably partied hard.
Which was not the WWF way because we weren't used to seeing that. We're used to seeing formulaic matches in WWF.
Yeah, crisp stuff. On June 14th of 93, the Steiners would defeat Money Inc. at a house show to win the WWF Tag Team Championships. However, they would lose them back at another house show on June 16th of 1993 to same Money Inc. And then finally on June 19th of 93, they would defeat Money Inc. once and for all to regain the WWF Tag Team title. I know we're going to get into what Jess was talking about, but you have to think about this. We're not even 6 months into their debut, and now they're already two-time tag team champions here.
I would rather have them treated them like the LOD. The LOD, it took like a year before Vince finally hit the titles on them. But when he did, if it hadn't been for Hawk falling off the wagon a lot, they probably would have rode with LOD for a long time. Here, like, I would rather them not put the Steiners as champions this quickly here if they're going to trade them back in house shows like that. I know back in the day, house shows were down in 93. So the philosophy behind it was, well, since we don't really have any mainstream stars right now, and we're just trying to rebuild with who we have, let's make the house shows more exciting. So people, when they go to house shows, like, they just think, oh, we're going to watch the same wrestlers. They're going to do their top 5 moves, and then they're going to win. And
no titles are going to change.
Yeah, so they believe to try to get house attendance up, if you have titles change, and anything can happen in the WWF on house shows, that you would go and see it.
That's where it was coming from.
I would say I absolutely hate that philosophy, but I understand why they did that philosophy here. But it just sucks that Steiners didn't get to win their first World Tag Team titles on a pay-per-view for everyone to see, or on their brand new live show called Raw. That's weird. If you're going to put money into a tag team, don't do it at a house show. Do it live.
I don't want to be, you know.
Well, you are.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Right now.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. We're in a state of flux here, is what I would argue, Justin. I think you know this.
So yeah, let's be more flexy then.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, we haven't gotten to the notion yet of where television wrestling pays you as much as the house show might pay you. We're kind of, you know, Vince is kind of testing the waters here of what's gonna pay me more, having this stuff happen on syndicated television or actually having a house show where I can trade titles.
No, Raw wasn't syndicated. First of all,
it was live. I'm
Raw
sorry,
was
it was
live.
live.
So
So
what is going to pay you more? Seeing it live and then being like, oh shit.
but
Steiner's
what are your buy rates live at that time, Jess? That's what I'm asking. This is brand new. Raw is like a brand new thing.
Yeah,
And
no,
we
it
were
was a
into
hit.
it, but what about the average viewer?
It was a hit show, but I would rather see. So you were
No, I
gonna
know what
get-
you would rather see,
Yeah.
but you got to talk about the money.
Right, but
Right?
that's what I'm saying. Why would you not have the Steiners win it on your flagship show, even though it's new, but your live show that everybody will see to get them excited to go
I could
see
follow
them defend
that.
their
I could
titles?
follow that argument
Like-
because then you're saying now what's going to happen next?
Think
week,
about
come
how
and
many.
watch,
Think
right?
about how many times they wrestle and how many title changes can actually happen before it gets ridiculous. Do they
Yeah.
really think that coming to Lake Elsinore,
I-
California, I'm going to be like, I might see a title change? I will never see a title change in Lake Elsinore, California. I know this. Like,
no matter
so
how hot it is.
Yeah, no matter how hot it is, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So at the same time, like, no, you always go to your pay-per-views, which at the time their pay-per-views were their bread and butter. And now your new live show, you always do that. You want to advertise the Steiners, let them win it on a grand stage so everyone can see it. And then when they come to your town, I want to go watch the Steiners defend the titles. That's the way it's always worked, and it was always worked that way. You cannot entice
But
me
there
by saying,
were
I
but it
might
was-
watch
until it-
Savio Vega
until it
win the
wasn't.
IC
I hate to be
title
that
for 5
guy.
minutes. Like, that's
until
not
it
the
wasn't
problem.
working.
The problem with me is that first year, they just didn't have. We'd gone from Midnight Express, Doom, Road Warriors to Beverly Brothers, Head Shrinkers.
Yeah, it was
Money
going
Inc.,
down.
who was
Yeah.
great, but like in the grand scheme of tag
Underrated.
team wrestling and the 20 years in the middle of that and beyond the scope of
Yeah.
20 years tag teams, Vince didn't give a shit about tag teams.
You're
but,
right.
like,
It was
That's true,
getting
too.
weak. You're
and
right.
he
You're right.
promised that he promised them a lot of things, I think, and
Yes,
they
he
were
did.
great. But like they were cartoony. I loved that Michigan fight song, enhanced WWF music.
But I don't think they
Um,
wanted to be. I think their style was still. We'll get into
Stiff.
it later. I got a couple stories I didn't put in the notes on purpose for talking points, but Vince doesn't like stiff wrestling. He doesn't care for it. And even though we respect it and love it, I think Vince was just about, no, you need to forget what you know. You need to fall in line, and you're going to be part of our and that's what.
Yeah.
I don't think Steiner's ever really bought into that fully. They didn't want to. Even though Rick, you would think would be perfect. He's the dog-faced gremlin. He wears unmatching shoes.
I'll tell
he barks,
you,
you know.
I mean, maybe this is for the end, but you talk about Scott and his issues with Bill Watts, and you talk about Rick being probably could have been a part of the WWF machine, even singles wise. A lot of this has to do with Scott, not Rick. Not wanting
Probably,
to
you're probably right,
also, and then compounding that is it probably when they brought them along, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. Vince wanted Scott.
Yes.
They wanted
Yeah,
Scott
so he was not
hard.
down with
So
what
if-
they were talking about. Yeah,
It wasn't so much Vince, by the way. It was Bruce Pritchard and,
So
and
if-
Patterson.
if-
they love Scott.
So
Yeah,
if
they
Scott
love
wasn't on
Scott.
board at
They
being the
wanted
singles
him
guy,
back.
they're going
But
to
Vince,
punish him.
I guarantee you, Vince and
maybe
Scott were
that
not-
run
not
wasn't.
vibing. just
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't as pure as it could have
Yeah.
been, the Steiner brothers. Yeah.
Rick could have been great doing some single fun stuff. You know, I don't want to say Doink the Clown stuff, but good fun stuff.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not polka dot tight stuff, but something. You know, I'm just saying Rick would have been great and probably would have made more money than he ever made in his life. But Scott's a jerk. Sorry.
No, they
Those
all
titles-
did that when they went back to WCW during
Yeah,
the,
they all do that. They
during the
all
Monday Night Wars. They made more money
Yeah.
than they could deal with.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. They were short-lived champions, unfortunately, with those titles. On September 13th of 93, they would lose the WWF tag titles to the Quebecers in a Providence of Quebec rules match. The rules stated the champions could lose their titles by disqualification. I didn't know Quebec had those rules. The ending came when Scott intercepted a hockey stick thrown to Jacques. He then began to use it as the ref turned around. He was DQ'd as a result and lost the tag titles. Quebecers, heavily underrated.
I love them.
Yes! No! I bet! I'll bet you anything on this one!
What's happening?
No!
As a result of a disqualification,
believe
the
this.
winners
This is
of
it.
this bout and new
Yes!
World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions, the Group Victor.
I love them.
Yeah, the Steiners.
But
would be a part of-
Steiner's are on record saying that they hated working with the Quebecers. They felt that they were clunky, especially Pierre. and like it was hard to work with him. And I was like, pick him up and
Because
throw him around then.
they're reading the crowd and like they're
But not
gonna
even
let you
that
throw it
though.
on
So
either.
this is the difference, right? If the Quebecers fought Steiners in WCW, there would be no issue because Steiners would just throw them around on their head and not care. But in WWF, Vince is like, you take care of my guys. You don't fucking do that. So like, they probably wanted to dump Jock and Pierre on their head many times and like kind of stiffen up.
Not to mention, this is
but
the,
Vince
this
is like,
the
no,
good,
you're not. You're not going.
This
to.
is the good guy federation, which means
Yeah.
the Rougeos have to get their licks in, and you have to make the comeback. That's how it works here.
Right.
It's different in New York, right? I mean, it's just a different vibe, different game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Steiners will be part of the main event at Survivor Series in '93 as a part of Lex Luger's team. Although both Steiners were eliminated at one point, Luger would be the sole survivor and win it for his team. At Royal Rumble of '94, the Steiners would participate in the Rumble match, but would be eliminated in short order. There's a hidden gem here, Jess. At the end of '93, on a taping of Coliseum home video, imagine that the Steiner brothers wrestle some Hart brothers. I wonder why it's a gem. So Brett and Owen faced them in a fantastic tag team match. It was later released on the WrestleFest '94 video cassette. At around 25 minutes of wrestling, both teams were counted out of the ring, probably to save face.
This match is really good, and dare I say, this might be the highlight of the Steiners. And it was on a Coliseum home video match. It was taped in a dark match, and for Coliseum home video. I mean, this match must be the
you can only
match that-
imagine what Owen is taking on bumps for these guys.
Well, not even that. Like Brett too, and like watching them in
Yeah.
there. Like I love this match. Like it's. I couldn't believe it when I rented that VHS because when Coliseum Home Video was putting out their shit, I would always want to rent them when they first came out. And I remember going like Steiners and Owen and Brett. I'm on board. And like I again, as a wrestling fan, I watched it going, this is so not a WWF match, but it wasn't meant to be. Like they knew it was going to be a house show match. They knew it was going to be filmed for Coliseum Home Video. And I think that was probably the only time that Rick and Scott got to actually let their hair down and just go nuts. And yeah, that match, them against Brett and Owen, go back. It's on the internet. It's all over YouTube. I want to say it's all over the internet right now. But
Yeah,
it's
you can
on.
find it.
Yeah, it's on the WrestleFest 1994 Coliseum home video release, and the Steiners and the Hart brothers. Like good shit, man. Like just it was a house show. It was probably managed by just one roadie. Vince probably wasn't even there, and they're just like, just fucking go out and fucking wrestle.
Just go
Have
do
a
it.
good-
Yeah, just go
Have a
tear
good
it down.
time. Yeah, it was awesome.
Good stuff. Before the Steiners' contract would expire in '94, Vince would allow them to travel to New Japan Pro Wrestling and just pick up a couple of quick paydays there. That was extremely rare for Vince to allow talent to just go to New Japan. More than likely, he was trying to appease the Steiners who had grown frustrated with their WWF situation, felt they were being underutilized, undervalued, with pay especially. The original plans for Scott in '93 were pretty interesting, right?
This
Jess?
goes back to what Craig said. Yeah, at the beginning of '93, when they brought the Steiners in, Patterson and my God, Bruce Pritchard were big fans of the Steiner brothers, but Scott in particular, because he had the body, he had the look, and like they really wanted to. So they knew that year that they were going to make the Royal Rumble 1993 winner get a shot for the first time ever at the World Wrestling Federation champion at WrestleMania. And now we know now that whoever wins the Royal Rumble, even to this day, gets their choice of champion at WrestleMania. So they wanted to really hit that home. They wanted Scott Steiner. This is according to Bruce Pritchard. It was a big discussion topic that they wanted Steiner to debut. They wanted to push him as more of a singles. They wanted to have him enter the Royal Rumble, win the Royal Rumble, and then go on to WrestleMania and win the world title. That's what they wanted. Again, so much of this stuff is like just throw shit against the wall and see what sticks. Bruce is just letting us into talks. Can you imagine how many talks they had about what if we have Coco win the title? I don't mean that to be rude, but they probably are throwing stuff out there. What if we have, what about Virgil? He breaks away from DiBiase and then he goes, you know what I mean? Like, you never know how many different talks they had to do different things. We just know what we saw. And then when we hear those discussions, we're like, that was dumb. What tugboat Sheik Adnan or whatever, you know what I mean? Like what
I gotta tell you, I'm totally jonesing for a Virgil push right around then.
Right. But I mean, like I was
for it.
using that as an example. Like
Sure.
This is the stuff they throw around, and so I don't know how serious it became. It probably wasn't even very serious, but they were talking about, and Pritchard said on his podcast that they were dead serious about really giving it a thought. They were pitching it hard.
Who's
to Vince.
who's the closest person to the Hulk at this moment while the Hulk is gone? Scott Steiner. You know, there's a couple
Yeah.
other big guys, but with
And
that
Vince,
physique,
I
Scott's
guess
close.
Vince liked it, but the Steiner brothers were their brothers, and they were like, "No,
Yeah.
we're tag team. We're tag team wrestling, and that's what we wanted to do."
Yeah.
And so Steiner's, they, if we come in, we want to be the Steiner brothers. We want to be tag team wrestlers. Okay. So Craig had a point earlier where it was like maybe Vince was a little bit
being told what
I
to
tried
do.
to give you a big shot, and
He-
you turned me down for a singles. Well, okay, whatever.
God,
Like,
there's
you know,
so much weird stuff you got here, Jess, in these
But-
notes. It's crazy.
yes, there's just so many cool things like that. Like
in '94, they would.
Vince doesn't like being told what to do or told no, and then when he's told no, he's going to make an example out of you. But at the same time, I think no matter what, I think the Steiners were doomed to have this run. And not that it was terrible. It really wasn't. They were tag team champions. They were featured
two times.
Also, too, towards the end of the run, if you go back and look at a lot of Monday Night Raws towards the end of '93 and beginning of '94, they were not even any major program Steiners. After they lost the titles to Quebecers, they would just come up every now and then on Raw, and they would wrestle enhancement talent. There's a lot of times, and I think it was either some shoot interviews or some other people that worked at WWF at the time saying Scott would go out of his way to taunt Vince because, as everybody knows, Raw was live and Vince was doing the commentary down at ringside with Savage and Savage or the King, depending on when it was.
Oh
when it
shit!
was.
That's fun.
Oh wow!
So Scott would just brutalize prelims right in front of Vince with all the stiff wrestling moves that the Steiners were known for. That was very anti WWF bubblegum, like what Vince liked.
Yeah.
There was another time where, if you go back on the internet, there's a lot of stuff where he would do the screwdriver pile driver, which is where he would pick people up in the suplex and then drop them into the pile driver. Vince is not a big fan of pile drivers, but he's not a fan of stiff wrestling. There's a couple times where he would point down to Vince and be like, "This is for you," and he would pick him up and he would do the spike, the screwdriver pile driver.
I mean,
and
this
look
is
at
before
Vince.
his brain
There's a lot
broke.
of late
Like, this
shit
is all
where
good
people were
for
like,
Scott
was fucking
before his
taunting Vince,
brain
like
just went-
just
That's
showing him like,
crazy.
"This is what we
Good
do."
kid.
Or he would do it in a subtle way. He'd look at Macho. He's like,
He's
"This
trying-
for you." He's all,
he's
"This
just
for you,
trying- I feel
Macho."
like He's just trying to get Vince to release him, right?
Yeah.
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 Like seriously,
So-
he's like, I Vince, just release me so I can go to New Japan. And
There's one that he would
money.
point down. He's all, "This for you, Macho," and Macho's right next to Vince, and then he would pick him up
Holy.
and fucking do a screwdriver, pile driver, or whatever. Like, and it was like kind of cool because some people were saying like, I really believe he was just like looking at Vince, going, "Fuck you. This is how we wrestle. This is what we do." Like,
Yeah.
so if you don't like
Take
it,
it or
fine.
leave it.
Yeah, take it or leave it. And
Yeah.
so he left it. Vince did.
So in '94, they would return to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and then on July 28th of '95, they would debut for ECW in New York. That's another crazy factoid. They would
A
be
lot
in
of other hidden
several
gems,
tag
man. I don't know
matches
where you
there.
can find a lot of this stuff. Probably YouTube. They, in the 4 or 5 months they were there, that's fucking. Paul Heyman and ECW get
crazy.
the rap of they're just like Sandman style wrestling, or they like New Jack style wrestling.
Not
No.
true.
That's
Not
that's just what makes all the headlines.
Sure.
Paul Heyman loved stiff wrestling. The Steiners were absolutely perfect for ECW and Paul Heyman. I mean, he loved the Guerreros and the Malenkos and the Matt Classics and all that.
Those are great matches.
Paul
yeah.
loved that stuff. It was just part of it. The Steiners were perfect. They weren't going to flounder around, though, by the way, in ECW because their name value, it wasn't going to happen. But for a cool 4-month period, they got to spend some time in ECW and wrestle a bunch of different people. It was awesome. It was cool to
Just
see.
tear each other apart.
Yeah,
over
it was
there,
awesome.
But they'd still make their. Wait a minute, did I go too far?
No, you're good. WCW.
They make their WCW return in 1996. They initially feuded with the Road Warriors and had several matches within champion Sting and Lex Luger. On July 24th of 1996, they would defeat Harlem Heat for the WCW tag titles, but they would lose them 6 days later due to Scott suffering an injury that forced him out for a couple of months. That's rough. And then the beginning of 97, they began feuding with Hall and Nash over the WCW tag titles. They would win those tag team titles from Hall and Nash at Sold Out. That's SOULED.
As a result of being
but
unfair.
stripped of those titles
Lovely.
2 days later because Eric Bischoff deemed their victory unfair. That
So
sounds
great.
Nice. That's nice.
Randy Anderson coming in from out.
No,
This is absurd. This is impossible.
that's not gonna stand.
This is
No way.
impossible. That did not happen. That did not happen.
That is not going to stand.
That's nice. On October 13, 97, they defeated Six, subbing for Nash. Unfair. Syxx is subbing for Nash and Hall to win the WCW World Tag Titles there. Signs of trouble are brewing when the brothers began showing early in 98. Scott was noticeably bigger and would use heel tactics, while Rick would look upon him in disapproval. They would lose the belts to Hall and Nash on January 12th of 98, but win them again on February 9th of same year. At Super Bowl of 98, they were set to defend against Hall and Nash.
The National
Shortly after the
Organization
match
of Women
began, Scott
then
would turn on his
recruited
brother and join
Scott Steiner.
the NWO. The NWO. You have it spelled now. That's
I
fine.
know, that's fucking autocorrect.
I was like, damn it. But I'll tell you. I mean, and there it is. And it Jess, you put this at the end run of the greatest tag teams in history. Was Rick done here? I'm trying to remember. Did he kind of
no. They kind of had like a half-ass feud with Rick and Scott that never paid off in like a one-on-one singles match, which still to this day boggles my mind. Can you imagine if both Rick and Scott were motivated enough, the talent they had, they would just fucking be awesome. It'd be
to go against each other.
But WCW just didn't fucking. It was all about the NWO.
Brother versus brother.
So, yeah, they didn't know what to do with this. This is WCW, even though it was at the apex of their popularity in the NWO. Like
Vince would have known what to do with it, but he's been a dick.
Yeah.
So
there you see the Steiners, one of their trademark poses in the ring, daring the opponent to get in. Rick and Scott. I say to that power bomb question, yes. Oh, what did I just see? He double axed his own brother. What in the world did I just see? You gotta be kidding.
I knew there was something wrong. I could smell it.
He's acknowledging Scott Hall. This is.
So, but again, thus ended the run of one of the greatest tag teams in history. You guys want to run through the championships and accomplishments before, or you anything else you want to
please do.
All right. Well, let me see what we got here because I think it spans over 2 pages. It's just that long. So we got the NWA WCW Tag Team Championship, 7-time champions there. Also, the NWA World Championship Wrestling United States Championship 1 time. They were the WWF Tag Team Champions 2 times. IWGP Tag Team Champions 2 times. PWI Match of the Year 91 versus Lex Luger and Sting at Super Bowl of 91. The PWI Tag Team of the Year 2 times, 1990 and 1993. PWA Top 100 Tag Teams of All Time. They list them at number 2 in 2003. Wow. Who was number 1? I don't even know.
LOD.
Road Warriors?
Yeah,
LOD. The Wrestling Observer Match of the Year in 91, which is the Hiroshi and Kazuka Saga. We mentioned that match earlier. And then Wrestling Observer Tag Team of the Year in 1991.
We shit on the WWF run or whatever a little bit, but like they won Tag Team of the Year in
twice.
93.
Yeah, I want to see that match. I guess you can see it on the internet.
Yeah,
but like,
insane. It's just
fucking Vader.
Even more so, and they won their second IWGP championship from Bigelow and Vader, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, it's on YouTube as well. Yeah. I mean, the vacuum of like 1990 to like 1993, that 3-year span, they dominated 2 promotions, 3, New Japan, WCW, and WWF. Listen, I know the Road Warriors were around a long time, and their looks carried them a long way. And we did a great episode. One of my proudest episodes we've ever done is the Legacy of Legion of Doom, because I just liked it so much, and I felt like we all kind of like hit our points and really, really celebrated their career. And it was long, and Steiners were a little bit shorter in their tag team career. When you think about it, from 89 to 98, 9 years, like they were relatively the top tag team.
That's a long time for a tag team to stay together.
Except for a couple, and that's a great point, and they weren't like LOD were matching face paints and stuff like that, matching shoulder pads. So that's more likely they'll stay together. Steiners, even though they kind of wore singlets and stuff like that, they had no reason to stay together. Scott and Rick both showed at different points in their careers that they were phenomenal singles wrestlers and they could carry their own baggage. But like if people say like, a lot of people now will say the Dudley Boys because they're super decorated, and like there's a lot of teams that can say are the greatest tag team of all time. But if you said the Steiners, I'm not going to disagree with you. They did in that 3-year vacuum. I don't know how you can get better than what they did. I mean, I know Dudley's would end up winning IWGP, but I think it was kind of forced, and like that was just, IWGP was sort of soft at the time and not really popular. And that was
they needed them more than
Steiner's like went over there and worked that style, that New Japan Pro Wrestling style, and fit in and dominated, and they had the presence where they were like, well, they're big enough in America where we were fine with them for a couple months, walking around with our belts and kind of showing off and stuff to kind of get an American fan base going or whatever. And WCW, to their credit, always tried to get New Japan involved in stuff, and I used to love that as a fan. The Steiner Brothers are one of, and when I say one of, I mean top 5 without question. If you have a top 5 tag team, you could say, oh, this tag, like my personal favorite is the Hart Foundation. But if I'm talking about, like, I'm being dead honest, like overall, like top 5, Steiners are absolutely in my top 5, and they might be number 1, like, because they were that.
I'll put them on the monument, top 4.
They were part of the NWO, Scott was physically a part of the NWO, but before that, they fought the NWO in that whole year. So they were part of. They were a part of the 90s. They were a part of the eruption of the Monday Night Wars and the repopulation of wrestling in America.
Debuting on Raw. Oh my God.
Steiners were a part of all that stuff. And they're the debut of Raw and everything. And the Steiner, what do you say? The Steiner Brothers are, I just saying they're one of the greatest tag teams of all time is, to me, doesn't even sound like good enough to say for them.
Almost sounds like a disservice.
They're fucking amazing. Like, they're just one of the greatest, if not the greatest tag team of all time. There's nobody better. They were stiff. They did some stuff there. They brutalized prelims a lot, and they're so enjoyable to go back and watch those matches. But at the same time, back in the day, that's what those prelims were there for, man. They were there to take their $100 and get dumped on their head sometimes.
There's a reason why you're called enhancement talent.
Yeah, Steiners were just amazing, and like they had great matches with Anderson and Eaton that we kind of touched on. They had great matches with Doom. They had great matches with LOD. They had great matches with the Samoan SWAT team. They had great matches with, the Quebecers, Money Inc. Like, it's on and on, man. Like the Midnight Express. Like, Jesus. Like, where do you end? Go on. Stop me.
Oh, yeah. Greg, take it away, bud. What do you got?
I think these guys. I think the fact that they're brothers. Scott could have had a lot bigger career than he had. I think he could have peaked 5 years earlier than he had. I think there's something about them being blood and them wanting to protect each other and protect their brand and protect their tag team. Even when Rick, when he began, brought Scott in and Scott protected Rick. You gotta love him.
Yeah.
They both were amazing in their own right. I love the Steiner Brothers. They absolutely are on the Mount Rushmore of tag teams. And I'm having trouble articulating it, but I think it's the selflessness, not selfishness, but selflessness of these guys. And the fact that they're brothers, like maybe if Owen was stuck around longer than he had, like Rick and Scott, like they were better than the sum of their parts. Like they were better together than apart. And I don't want to think about the Steiner Brothers when I think of Scott Steiner and how crazy he went with the math promo and the memes and then everything.
The chainmail. Yeah.
He went nuts. I want to remember the Steiner Brothers for how pure they were in WCW in that first 5 years, and then WWF.
I'm always
they
more
nailed
fond
everything, but didn't work, and it wasn't their fault. It was Vince's fault. Like,
whoa.
It was, instead of him bending the tag team division to fit their physical style, he's like, nope, you're going to fit my mold. And you can respect Vince for that, because Vince has had the biggest names in front of him, and he's like, go if you want to go.
Call Scott crazy if you want, but like Vince was like, yeah, we'll take the Steiners, but we want Scott. And Scott's like, no, you'll take the Steiners and you will push the Steiners.
Yeah.
So,
and that's
Scott
why I
held on to his brothers. And
but he knew, and it wasn't because he was doing charity for Rick. Rick was that good. Rick was amazing. Like
Yes.
Rick was so good.
Yeah, and that's exactly
can
right.
carry-
Yes.
he
And I
can
don't mean to
carry
say that. I was like, he didn't drag his brother along. Like Rick was
Yeah.
fantastic. Like they wouldn't be the greatest tag team of all time if Rick wasn't that good. But like Scott, until the very end, didn't want to test that waters. Like he didn't want to leave his brother behind.
And I think when you look
he
now
thought-
at their lives too, like Scott still is making indie shots and stuff like that. Rick has humored him, I think, every now and then and come back over the years and become like, you know, they've just sort of rejoined the Steiner Brothers and whatever promotion. But Rick Steiner has really adjusted well to being a civilian and loved the fact that after his main wrestling career was over, he started a successful real estate company and he was always good at other things like that. He was on the school board for his kids. And Rick Steiner has just loved being a dad and a civilian. I don't think Scott did. I'm not saying Scott didn't like being a dad, but Scott liked professional wrestling and wanted to stay.
Spotlight.
And I'll never forget WrestleMania in New Orleans, 33 or 34. Which one?
I think 34.
34.
Yeah.
We're at the whatever the fucking the
Convention
was like. At the very, very end, we were walking out and we saw Rick and Scott talking at the same table. This was after the signing.
Yeah.
And they were just like chatting like brothers. Like, holy shit. Like they are still
cool.
close. They didn't sign together. They weren't announced together. They're just sitting at a signing. And I think they were in different booths, in fact.
Yeah.
Like just hanging out. I was like, God damn it. Like I fucking love, like, that's what brothers got to do.
You always want to remember them as the Steiner Brothers, not as Scott after the fact. And that's, that's how
Jess,
that's how we choose it.
Jess was super hungover and threw up.
So hungover. Yeah, oh my God. So hungover.
I don't know if Jess
missed the fact that Mysterio was in the elevator with him the whole time.
We went up to the wrestling convention and I mean it was a wrestler's dream up there, right? If you're a wrestling fan, I mean, so many people were up there, so many names.
Yeah.
And I spent half of it downstairs vomiting in the hotel bathroom.
He was
because
so
I
slick,
decided
he
I
was
wanted
like,
to...
I'll be right back. I'll call you guys.
And then towards the end, towards the last half an hour, I really enjoyed myself because I finally got it all out of my system and I felt much better. And I got to meet Bischoff and Gene Okerlund, which is one of the highlights of my life, meeting him, especially when he passed so soon after. We just, there's a lot of people that we got to talk to, and Six was awesome and funny, and DDP was magnanimous, and so it was just kind of cool. But yeah, I forgot all about the Steiners till you said something right now, Craig. They were there too, and it's like they're
they weren't together for the signing or that day, but when we were walking out, they just happened to be in the front doors, by the wide bay doors where it opened up,
and they were just talking shit. Yeah,
holy fuck, they're just chilling out,
just chilling. Yeah,
and I think it was Noelle Foley was looking at them too.
Yes, because Mick was there and she was there.
Oh my God, how old was she there?
She was 12. No, I don't know. She was.
For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcast, or watch the video on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, and on social media, give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019, or at Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. This is Dave, Jess, and Craig with the O.W.P signing off, guys. Until next time.
Doesn't this don't you don't like you cowards? Do you decorate this world as you want it to be? Let me make something your words have no bearing over me. Because my mind was no reservations thought. So let's just stay the fuck away. Say it with me. Say it with me. Swing it with me. Want others to do as you do and not as they should for themselves, oppressing your own cognitive function, eliminating conversations or chips we're growing and awakening because of your own weakened fragility. Such a man in this world only swallow you whole and victimize you to those who wish to defeat and all that's true. And at the end of the day, it's them versus me and you. Let me make something really, really deep. away.